Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA AS Psychology 2019 Paper 1 Examplar Answers for Attachment, which you need to know for AQA Alevel Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. In AS there are 12 mark questions, instead of 16 mark questions. For the purpose of this video and to avoid confusion for Alevel, the 12 mark questions have been turned into 16 mark questions. Brian and Mikhail are discussing how they manage their child care. Brian: I take the children to the park most evenings where we run around or play football. Their mum, Julie, makes their evening meal and gives them a bath, before putting them to bed. Mikhail: it must be nice to have time to go to the park. As a single parent, I am the one who makes the evening meal and does the bedtime routine. Question 1. With reference to the conversation above, briefly discuss what research has shown about the role of the father in attachment. 4 marks. Field, 1978, filmed 4-month-old infants in face-to-face interactions with primary attachment caregiver mothers, secondary attachment caregiver fathers and primary attachment caregiver fathers. Primary attachment caregiver fathers, like primary attachment caregiver mothers, spent more time smiling, imitating, and holding their infants than the secondary attachment caregiver fathers. This suggests that fathers have the potential to be the more emotionally focused primary attachment figure and adopt more maternal roles, being able to provide the responsiveness required for a close emotional attachment but only express this when given the role as a primary attachment caregiver. Brian's role as a father appears to be for play and stimulation to complement the role of the mother, Julie. Mikhail's role as a father appears to be as a primary caregiver to be a nurturing attachment figure. Question 2. Give 3 behaviors that researchers have measured in order to classify attachment type when using the strange situation. 3 marks. 1 behavior that researchers have measured in order to classify attachment type when using the strange situation is proximity seeking. A baby with a good quality attachment will stay fairly close to a caregiver. A second behavior that researchers have measured in order to classify attachment type when using the strange situation is exploration and secure base behavior. Good attachment enables a baby to feel confident to explore, using their caregiver as a secure base, i.e. a point of contact that will make them feel safe. A third behavior that researchers have measured in order to classify attachment type when using the strange situation is stranger anxiety. One of the signs of becoming closely attachment is a display of anxiety when a stranger approaches. Question 3. Apart from ethical issues, explain 1 limitation of the strange situation as a measure of attachment type. 3 marks. 1 limitation of Ainsworth's strange situation study is that it suffers from cultural bias. The measurements of attachment as identified in Ainsworth's strange situations may not be valid in different cultural contexts. The strange situation was developed in the USA, which is an individualist, Western society, which suggests that the strange situations may not be able to be generalized to collectivist cultures such as China and Japan. One reason for this is that infants have different experiences in different cultures and these experiences may affect their responses to the strange situation. Takahashi, 1990, conducted a study in Japan, where mother and infant separation is very rare and found that a disproportionate amount of infants displayed very high levels of separation anxiety and were therefore classified as insecure resistant. Vanage Zendorn and Kroonenberg, 1988, conducted a meta-analysis study with infants and caregivers in Germany, where infants are encouraged to be independent and found that infants were more commonly classified as insecure avoidant. This is a limitation because it suggests that the cultural bias inherent in Ainsworth's strange situation study may restrict its applicability to diverse cultural contexts, as highlighted by the studies conducted in Japan and Germany. The findings from these studies emphasize the necessity of considering cultural variations in attachment research to ensure a comprehensive and inclusive understanding of attachment behaviors across different societies. Question 4. Describe what research with Romanian orphans has shown about the effects of institutionalization. 6 marks. Rutter et al., 1998, found that at the time of adoption, 50% of the adoptees showed signs of delayed intellectual development and were severely malnourished and physically smaller. The control group did not display these deficits. At age 11, the mean IQ of those adopted before the age of 6 months was 102, for those adopted between 6 months and 2 years it was 86, and for this adopted after 2 years it was 77. With those who had been adopted before the age of 6 months catching up with their British counterparts. The variation in the extent to which children recovered from the effects of institutionalization correlated to the age at which they had been adopted. 74% of infants adopted after the age of 6 months showed signs of disinhibited attachment and delayed social problems with peer relationships. 9% of infants adopted before the age of 6 months showed signs of disinhibited attachment. The Romanian orphans also showed effects of institutionalization, such as disinhibited attachment, delayed intellectual development, impaired language signs, impaired social skills, delayed physical and psychological development, lack of internal working model and quasi-autism. Question 5. Outline and evaluate Bowlby's monotropic theory of attachment. 8 marks. Bowlby, 1969, proposed that caregiver-infant attachments can be explained as an innate universal and biological drive, which serves an evolutionary purpose in aiding survival and reproductive value in the long term in line with Darwin's evolutionary theory. Through natural and sexual selection, infants adapt to remain within close proximity to their caregivers, who protect them from hazards e.g. traffic and electricity and feed them. This increases their chances of survival and reproductivity in the future, as infants are able to explore the world and return back to their safe base, their caregiver, when they feel threatened. Bowlby's theory is described as monotropic because he placed great emphasis on an infant's attachment to one particular primary caregiver, who was most sensitive to the infant's needs, usually the mother, and he believed that that infant's attachment to this one caregiver is different, unique, special, and more important than others. Bowlby believed that the more time the infant spent with this primary attachment figure the better. He put forward 2 principles to clarify this: the law of continuity and the law of accumulated separation. Bowlby suggested that infants are born with a set of innate cute behaviors, e.g. smiling, cooing, gripping, sucking, clinging, that encourage attention from adults. He called these behaviors social releases because they were responsible for activating the adult's attachment system, e.g. making an adult feel love towards an infant, which elicits caregiving and facilitates an interactive and innate two-way relationship between the caregiver and the infant, e.g. reciprocity. Bowlby proposed that there is a critical, or sensitive, period, which is around 12 months for most infants, although can extend up to approximately between 2.5 to 3 years. During this time period an infant's attachment system is active, and therefore if an infant is unable to or cannot form an attachment during this time, then it is unlikely that they will ever form an attachment in their lives, with it being suggested that infants who do not form attachments will end up being socially, emotionally, intellectually, and physically stunted. A strength of Bowlby's monotropic theory as an explanation of attachment is that there is research to support the existence and value of social releases. There is evidence to suggest that cute baby behaviors are designed to elicit interaction from caregivers. Brazelton et al., 1975, observed infants trigger interactions with adults using social releases. The researchers then instructed the infant's primary attachment figures to ignore their infant's social releases. Infants, who were previously shown to be normally responsive, became increasingly distressed and some eventually curled up and lay motionless. This is a strength because it suggests that social releases play a vital role in facilitating caregiver-infant interactions and are instrumental in establishing and maintaining secure attachment bonds between babies and their primary caregivers. The research findings underscore the significance of these behaviors in eliciting appropriate responses from caregivers, highlighting the mutual influence between infants and their attachment figures in the attachment formation process. A limitation of Bowlby's monotropic theory of attachment is that the concept of monotropy lacks validity. Schaefer and Emerson, 1964, studied 60 infants and found that within 1 month of an infant forming their first attachment, 29% had multiple attachments to someone else, and by 6 months after the first attachment, this figure was at 78%. At 18 months, 87% of infants had at least 2 attachments and 31% of infants had more than 5 attachments. This suggests that infants form multiple attachments, not just one monotropic attachment as proposed by Bowlby. This is a limitation because it suggests that the concept of monotropy proposed by Bowlby may not fully capture the complexity of infant attachment behaviors. Schaefer and Emerson's, 1964, study demonstrated that infants often develop multiple attachments to different individuals, contradicting the idea of a singular primary attachment figure in attachment theory. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.